biggest fur farms in County Laois. Well, years ago we had a number of protests there regularly in an effort to try and get fur farming banned, and as a result of this effort the Fianna Fáil Green Party coalition did agree to a phase-out ban, but unfortunately when that government collapsed and Fine Gael took over, they scrapped the ban, so we're basically starting the campaign from scratch again. We're travelling to a little town called Vickerstown, and we've protested this fur farm dozens of times, and even when we get good numbers the fur farmers can be quite aggressive. We've had to jump out of the way of trucks a number of times, we've been chased with shotguns. I've had one of the actual fur farmers threaten to smash his JCB into my car to teach me a lesson. So they're incredibly violent, as you would be if you worked on a fur farm, and there's been quite a number of times where we've had to call the guards for our own protection due to their level of violence towards us. We would say that the majority of the Irish people would support a ban on fur farming. If there was an animal rights group down in Stradbally or Portlaoise that was coming here all of the time, then it might have some sort of an effect. Oh God.
You want to just talk to the camera about the smell?
One of the first things you notice when you arrive is the absolute stench. I don't think anyone could fully be able to describe how sickening and dense this smell is. We're outside the fur farm now, and there's not a lot of mink on view, even though there usually is, and it probably means that sadly that the ones that have been bred this season have already been killed, and they probably have their breeding stock somewhere in the middle, not on the outskirts of the farm, so we can't see anything now, but next spring you'll see a lot of mink in those cages.
In the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan, arises out of the committee proceedings, and I now call on the Deputy to move.
I move. Speak first.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we did debate this at committee stage, and I think there's two aspects to this. First of all is fur farming per se. And I think quite a number of us have made our views known of how opposed we are to fur farming in itself. And we're looking at a time when so many countries in Europe have banned fur farming, and the latest being that the Netherlands, which was the third largest fur producer after China and Denmark, and we see them getting rid of fur farming. We also see it phasing out in other countries, which I think could have been a sensible approach here. I also at that stage discussed the way in which the animals are gassed, and I think there were...
My name is Maureen O'Sullivan, and I'm an independent TD representing the constituency of Dublin Central, and I've been in the Dáil since 2009. Well, since the late 70s I would have been involved with the late Tony Gregory, who was very much also an animal welfare campaigner. So I just continued the work that he had been doing. He had been very involved. He was the honorary president of ICABS, the Irish Council Against Blood Sports, so I continued with that. But I suppose for myself, I would be very respectful of nature and the animal kingdom, and I absolutely despise cruelty to animals.
My name is Laura Broxton. I'm from the National Animal Rights Association, which is an Irish group based in Dublin. Well, I've always loved animals, and my parents always had rescue animals at their home, and that just gradually connected the dots for me. These animals did not have a choice, but you do. Don't give your money to animal cruelty. Never buy real fur. When I was 12, I went vegetarian, went vegan when I was 13, and by the time I was 14, I was getting actively involved within animal rights groups and starting my own campaigns at 16, and then in 2007 I formed NARA. Never buy real fur.
I've come to join up here because for a long time I've been against this fur ever since I was old enough to know what it was all about. And since I've lived in Ireland and become aware of this campaign and these marvellous young people who really put their necks out and go walk the walk, as they say, and talk the talk, it's lovely to be standing here with them. So this is a very brutal industry. There was a period of time when even in film a character would not have worn a fur coat. So I think it's time that we really took a stand again.
It takes more than 50 dead animals just to make one fur coat for one selfish human being.
My name is Tani. I'm with the National Animal Rights Association in Ireland as well. I'm an activist from Los Angeles though. I did a lot of campaigning in California.
Okay, we're going to our next target now, which is costume. Boycott costume.
Boycott any shop you find to be selling real fur.
Fur farming is absolutely archaic, it's barbaric, it's unnecessary for it to continue.
They are kept in extremely poor conditions in cages. The method in which that's used in order to kill them is really inhumane, no matter what people say about it.
There are 3 fur farms in Ireland where around 250,000 mink are killed every single year. The fur farms are located, one in Leash, one in Donegal and one in Kerry.
And I do think this also impacts on the environment. I read a study that was done for animal groups in Italy, Holland and in Belgium, and they were looking at the impact of mink farms. And what they found was that there are severe impact on the environment. And these fur farms, they scored very heavily on 17 of the 18 environmental aspects, including climate change and toxic emissions. I think 1 kilogram of mink fur requires the killing of 11 animals.
They would be fairly small animals. They're like stoat weasel type animals, so you can fit a lot into one cage, you can fit a lot into one shed, a lot into one farm, and it's about mass production for these fur farms. So it's about how many they can squeeze into one spot. The one in Leash, for example, they would breed around 50 to 60,000 mink every single year, and then they would have additional stock on the farm, breeding stock. So I mean, it's a lot of animals in one tiny place, and you know, we've protested these fur farms for years, and it's not that big of an area, but when you're there and you see these mink in these cages and how small they are, it's not hard to imagine how this small plot of land can actually inhabit thousands upon thousands of mink. And these mink, they're killed at 6 months of age. They're put into what's known as a killing box and they're gassed to death. And you know, in Ireland you're only supposed to put 50 to 60 mink in the killing box at a time, but we've had numerous reports from ex-workers from these fur farms that say that about 150 are put into these killing boxes at a time, which are basically gas chambers. And it's pumped full of gas. These mink, because there's so many in one at the one time, are merely unconscious, not dead when they're being skinned.
In this day and age, you know, when we have so many alternatives to fur, we have synthetic materials, we have artificial materials, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I would be highly sympathetic to those who live in Arctic regions, like the Inuit people, who have a totally different relationship with the animal kingdom in those areas. But to just deliberately kill an animal for its fur, it is just absolute and utterly barbaric.
Like leaflet on how cocoa boutiques pay for animals to be bludgeoned to death for a stupid coat.
It must be equally as disgusted at the fur in the shop then if you think
Fighting about this is not constructive. Not at all. This is a completely different. We don't sell anything here without a certificate.
Is it certificate? What do you think that means? What do you think that means?
Ticking the box. No, it's not. No, it's How do you know that? Have you been to fur farm? You really knew all about it.
We do.
So they brush the rabbit's hair and take the excess and sew together a coat?
This is not my shop. It's nothing to do with me. I have no opinion on it.
We're talking about certificates, so that is your opinion.
You do have an opinion when you're working in a shop that sells fur.
Basically, one of the employees of Cocoa Boutique came out and had a problem where we were standing, and so we asked about why they're still selling fur, because a doorway should not be an issue, them selling fur should be the issue. And her main argument was that they have some sort of certificate of where their fur comes from, as if that makes it okay. A lot of people still think that fur farms don't exist here, that any fur in the shops is faux. So we need as many people as possible to join our campaigns to help create awareness, highlight this issue, and if we get enough people, then we will get more successes. The more people there are campaigning about an issue, the more people take it seriously, the more the government takes it seriously, and the easier it will be not only to get fur farming banned, but for sale and imports banned as well.
It's important to remember that mink, by their very nature, are solitary animals. Where in the wild they'd live and they'd hunt and forage for food and all that. Solitary on their own, but in fur farms, they're kept in 2, 3, 4, 5. Depends in these essentially small wire cages.
These mink are kept in tiny cages with a floor space equivalent to just about 2 shoe boxes. And they get their food put on top of their cage that they have to lick through the top, and they get a little water dropper, kind of like what you'd have for a hamster or a rabbit. Even though these animals are semi-aquatic and they'd spend about 60% of their time in water, they never get access to water except through a drip. And they're also very solitary animals. They don't like seeing other animals around them. They don't like being in packs. So apart from being in a tiny cage, they have to see so many other of their own species around them all the time, which drives them mad. So that, coupled with the tiny space, gives them what we call a stereotypical psychosis, which is repetitive behavior, self-mutilation, cannibalism. It basically means that these animals are being driven insane by their conditions.
From day one, since we launched our campaigns to expose the fur trade here in Ireland, was to obviously shut Ireland's fur farms down, and that's ARAN's goal. It was our goal right up until today, to bring an end to Ireland's fur farms, to bring them in line with Northern Ireland, and to bring, the country in line with the UK that have brought in legislation many years ago. I was happily involved in the campaign at the time. We supported it when the legislation was going through in the UK Parliament to ban fur farms. I think that, with enough effort, that we can do it here in this country too.
I mean, we know there's still 3 fur farms in Ireland at the moment. One of them is in my county, which is unbelievable because you go along the Ring of Kerry and you know that this horrible thing exists. I do know that people come in from England and they can get their coats and stuff cheaper here, which is why a lot of the stuff is actually sold to the English people more so than the Irish, even though I know that it is still existing here and people are still buying it. But I don't know how to completely shut the shops down other than if everybody gets together and takes a stand and say that it's unacceptable. And the mink, something needs to be done. They're not even native to here. It's just ridiculous.
So what was it that brings you out to this protest today?
Pretty much everything. There's just so much animal abuse, from puppy farming to fur farming to factory farming.
The then Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, was going to bring in the Animal Welfare Act, and it encompassed quite a number of different aspects to do with a whole variety of animal welfare issues. So I worked on that with other TDs and had amendments relating to quite a number of aspects to do with animal welfare, and fur farming was one. And the idea was, in this day and age, there was absolutely no need for fur farms.
So the second part of this is the welfare of the mink. presuming that, as you say, you want greater regulation, so fur farming is not going to be banned in this bill. So I do think there is a need for much stronger controls of the way in which the mink they're held, first of all, and the way in which that they are gassed. I think there are serious issues for the environment, which I pointed out at committee stage.
And Tara?
Yeah, no, look, we did have a good discussion on this in committee, and while I'm trying to accommodate people's concerns, there are some things that we just, you want fur farming banned. What I'm proposing to do is to introduce a new code of conduct, a new inspection regime, a new licensing regime, to try and reassure people that that within the boundaries of farming, if you like, that the welfare of the animals is protected, and that goes for things like the density of animal numbers in cages, the way in which they are killed, and I will be bringing that code before committee, and we will be able to discuss it again.
Now, to date, I haven't had any engagement with the new Minister for Agriculture. That's coming down the line. So I am living in hope. I have no reason to think he will be more sympathetic or less sympathetic, but time will tell. Look, I know there have been TDs in the Dáil who voted against my bill on banning live hare coursing. And I know they didn't want to. They would have much preferred to have voted with me on that. But there are some very powerful lobbies who are putting pressure on their TDs to continue with activities, because I wouldn't call them pastimes, activities like live hare coursing, like digging out of foxes, like hunting foxes, like the cull of badgers, like what's going on in puppy farms, and continuing the fur farms.
Back in 2009-2010, the Fianna Fáil Green Party coalition government agreed to a phase-out ban on fur farming, and this meant that fur farmers had 3 years to cease operations. Now, during this phase-out ban, 2 fur farms did actually shut down, another one in Donegal and one in Sligo, because they believed that the ban was going to happen, and they just closed operations and never started back up again. Unfortunately, when that Fianna Fáil Green Party coalition government collapsed and Fine Gael was voted in, they are not an animal-friendly party, and they scrapped the bill. They met with the fur farmers, not with any animal rights activists, and they decided that fur farming was a legitimate agricultural activity in Ireland. Fine Gael government in charge at the moment, it is very unlikely that they're even going to discuss fur farming while they're still in government. So we're hoping that the next government will be a little more animal friendly, and we might get the opportunity to put forward these bills again.
Excuse for animal abuse! There's no excuse for animal abuse! There's no excuse for animal abuse! That's it. That's right back. Excuse for animal abuse! There's no excuse for animal abuse! There's no excuse for animal abuse! And stay focused, stay active, keep upbeat, and together we will create a world where there's no more animal abuse and no more animal suffering.
I moved here shortly after I got into animal rights, and when I moved here I saw like shops selling fur, I see people down the street wearing fur, and it just really shocked me and made me sad, and I saw that a lot of people don't really do much about it either. Like there's not very many campaigns and protests other than NARA. NARA is the only group that I know of that frequently protests outside of shops or even talks to people on streets. Like when I'm on the street, I'll stop someone if I see them wearing fur, and I'll just ask them, like, do you know how that is made? Have you ever seen the conditions on fur farms?
So when will they have them back, do you say?
In the spring.
So the mink that were there are probably killed by now?
Yeah, and they'll have breeding stock kind of at the back, and for next spring there'll be lots of new kits born and stuff, so there'll be more mink in the cages.
Do you think if people knew more about these places, that how they feel different about it?
I think definitely if people had to look at this every day and see what actually goes on, I would hope that the country would be opposed enough to it to take action and do something about it.
And they're either expecting someone in or expecting someone out. So I'm just going to turn the car. This is theirs as well. That's their entrance. That's like it used to be a security hut. Then it was kind of converted and one of the workers lives there. And down that driveway is their house. And you can kind of see a little bit down here. There's the horses and you can see the start of the sheds from there. Okay, we're finished now, on the way back to Dublin because we have a bunch of fur shops to protest today.
My name's Anna. I got involved with NARA about a year and a half ago now.
My name's Carla. I got involved with NARA, the National Animal Rights Association, last year. And my first protest, it was about, like, I saw on Facebook that there was a fur protest outside a few of the shops that were selling fur in Dublin City.
I got involved in animal rights about 5 years ago. Really involved. I always loved animals, but when Morgan was found, Morgan the orca in Holland, that's when I actually really got involved.
I kind of felt, for me, I felt like I needed to surround myself with people who felt the same as me, and that's when I just started researching about animal rights groups in my area, and I found NARA, and I loved what they did, and I just wanted to get involved. It never occurred to me that there was still fur farming on in Ireland. I didn't even think fur was still a thing at all.
I just think about the animals and how they have to spend their lives in tiny cages, and I feel like a lot of people don't speak out for them, so I feel like it's my job too.
I think once you know that things like this are happening, it's your obligation to stand up against it and become active.
We go around Dublin every winter season. We look for shops that are selling real fur. If they are, we approach the management about it. Now, some shops honestly don't know how cruel it is, or maybe have gotten in fur by mistake and it will be swiftly removed. Other shops see no problem in it, don't want any information, or else tell us they know the information and they don't care, and that's when we start protesting. And what we do is we stand outside the shops for a couple of hours every Saturday. We hand out information to the public and urge passers-by to boycott these shops, and hopefully, like with successes like Brown Thomas and other big department stores, if we have enough protests, a lot of these shops will decide just to get rid of fur, just to get rid of us. One of the shops we are protesting at the moment has a bit of a peculiar reaction to us approaching them about selling fur.
I have a quick question though. What is this made out of? Oh geez, that's really horrific to put on kids. The foxes are anally electrocuted on fur farms. That's such a huge disappointment because I wouldn't put something like that on a kid. Is that real? It's really sad because these animals had lives, you know. Oh, that's really disappointing. Is there a way that we could get in contact if I could make a complaint to the owner? Facebook of pity. This is really shameful that it's real fur. I walked by and I thought it was fake fur. Wouldn't give my money for something that terrible.
And they are selling real fox fur, but anytime any of us tried to talk to them about it or message them on Facebook or email, and we were instantly blocked or ignored, and they put up on their own Facebook page a weirdly phrased message for all of their customers saying the only items on view are faux and eco-friendly. So they wouldn't say whether they were still had fur or whether they were getting rid of fur. All they were telling their customers is that what's on display at the moment is faux. After trying to drop into them and talk to them about it, they locked their door, wouldn't talk to us, called the guards. We tried to call their head office and they just told us that they couldn't comment on the issue. and they printed out A4 sheets of paper, stuck them in their windows, and just with the repeated line saying the only items on display are faux. So this led to a lot of confusion from us. Did this mean they were getting rid of the fur? Did this mean that the real fur was just hidden in the back and going to be put back out when we're gone? And then after a couple of weeks, now they've just decided that they're blatantly selling real fur. I see from Facebook, you guys are saying all the fur you're selling is faux, and only last week there was lots of real fur. My name's Laura Brox, and I messaged you and you blocked me from the page. But were you given any information as to what you were selling or not selling on fur? So is there any fur that I could buy today?
Why do you protest Bernardo's?
We protest Bernardo's because they're a company that sells real fur, and in 2016 it's very inappropriate for any shop in Dublin or anywhere in the world to be profiting from this cruelty. It's a luxury industry, and these animals have terrible lives and suffer very cruelly at the hands of these people, and Bernardo's makes a profit from this. They have been told many times how cruel it is, but they simply do not care, and it's a company that's been around for over 200 years now, and it's about time they went out of business.
What's the positive feedback that you get?
The positive feedback is most people are actually against real fur, and a lot of people going by actually think what they're selling is faux. So it is an industry that's on the way out, but there are a few shops left that still have it, and it takes campaigns to get it out.
Okay. And what's the negative feedback that you get from people sometimes?
Negative feedback would just be like offhanded remarks, I love fur, stupid comments like that from people thinking it's funny, people who obviously do not know the depth of animal cruelty that goes on in this industry. So all in all, you know, it's only stupid comments that we get.
What impact do you think that protesting will have?
Hopefully creating awareness, and I mean, when I started campaigning 10 years ago, there was fur in shops all along Grafton Street, everywhere, and one by one, through campaigning and raising awareness, a lot of companies signed fur-free policies. So it's an industry that's on the decline, and we see that with campaigning.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of people seem to think fur is a byproduct of the meat industry, but it really isn't. It's actually something that's produced in and of itself. So if you just do a quick Google, you can see how horrific it is, and it's unnecessary. We don't live in a place that's cold enough to warrant fur.
Everyone can make a difference in any way that they can. You know, what we would love to do is get more people active with our campaigns, to be protesting the shops, protesting the fur farms, and also writing, emailing and calling your local TDs, your local councillors, the ministers, anyone involved. You know, if you're down in Laois near a fur farm, contact Laois County Council and voice your objections. Contact your local TDs, contact the Minister for Agriculture, who is now Michael Creed. Make your statements known. Okay, so we're here today for Dublin's first March to Close All Slaughterhouses. It's the first one ever organised in Ireland, and it's to create the vegan message, spread the word. Over 60 billion animals are killed every year just to consume, and over 1,000 billion fish. And we're here to create awareness today about that, hand out literature and make the vegan message heard.
Yeah, it's a lot of crime. I was in at the very beginning, all right, but it was founded by Nuala Donlan and Jerry Boland. And I came across it on the street one day and joined. But what happened was it's sort of a lot of people that were running it, we lost the office and stuff. So I took it over then and kept it going for about the last, well, I'm there since 1989. Well, we're a vegan-based group, but you don't have to be vegan to join. We hope people will just get there eventually, you know. We campaign against all atrocities to animals. We don't sort of pick and choose as to what we go for, but we would go from a rights perspective, which means an abolitionist approach. So we would want any abuse banned rather than modified, or we don't go for bigger cages, for example. We've had a lot of successes over the years, but mostly with things that wouldn't involve the government. Full successes are another thing, getting a complete ban on something. Now, we got a ban on the stag hunt in 2010, but unfortunately the Ward Union Hunt are still out hunting twice a week with the stag that they bring along to the hunt themselves. So it's a hard slog, but we're not giving up. The fur issue is one that's like swings and roundabouts. You can get the fur maybe out of the shops, but if it's still being produced, that's really the problem. We want to cut the production. I actually go to Greece a lot, and in Greece there's so many shops selling fur, it's absolutely horrendous. Whereas the situation here would be more shops selling fur trim, including small shops in supermarket complexes, like there's one at the moment in Roselawn that we just discovered. They have a lot of fur in that shop. As regards legislation, again, back in 2010 when the Green Party were in, John Gormley wanted to ban fur, and we nearly got there, but the sticking point was the compensation for the farmers. Some of the TDs didn't want to give the compensation, some did, and it was over the amount and that. So that's where we got stuck, and then the Greens in office failed. So we're back to square one, I think, with fur farming again.
What I had been suggesting to the various animal welfare groups is that as we were coming in, a year ago with the local elections and then recently with the mainland general election, that when TDs, prospective TDs, candidates come knocking on your door, that you do say to them that animal welfare is an issue. I know when I was going around myself canvassing, there were people who were saying to me they knew what I had been doing about animal welfare and were very much supportive of that. I think it's going to TDs, emailing them, your own local TD, and letting them know that you don't like what's happening in this country in terms of animals. But I do think that it's a measure of us as a society if we are seen to be deliberately cruel to animals, and also deliberately cruel in ways that are completely and utterly unnecessary.
And we're going to start the march. So everyone just start assembling up that way.
We would like to create another big mass demonstration outside these fur farms again and organise a ban fur farming tour of Ireland again, like we did before the phase-out ban was put in place. We need people to volunteer their time, even one Saturday a month, to come and join us at campaigns, whether it's protesting fur shops or if we can get enough people to go down to a fur farm. This is what we need to do. There needs to be a resurgence of activism, and people need to make their voices heard on this matter, because I truly believe with just 3 fur farms at the moment, it would be incredibly easy to get this banned, but we need people. And the way forward from this is protest and highlighting this issue, creating awareness and getting more people on board.
What do we want? Animal liberation! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Animal liberation! When do we want it? Now!
And these sheds also basically just have a roof. They're kept in open sheds. And that means that these animals, even in the depths of winter, no matter how snowy it is, they never are in an enclosed shelter. And that's so that their bodies produce more
I don't think
fur.
it's true to say that it's deliberately cruel, though. I mean, this is a farming practice. It involves intensive farming, just like poultry or some pig farming is as well. It's not an industry that I'm, overly supportive of, but it's not an industry that I feel I should be banning either. And I did think about banning fur farming, but on balance, I think it is a fairer approach to the people involved in the industry, and from our point of view as legislators, to actually ensure that we apply best practice in Ireland to ensure that welfare considerations are focused on, and that we put both codes of conduct and a licensing system in place that reflects that. And if it's the case that that code of conduct and that licensing system makes it uncompetitive, well then so be it in the future. But I am slow to simply ban outright something that I personally mightn't be that comfortable with, but at the same time, that is a very different thing to actually deciding to ban something. So, you know, I do think that that this industry has a right to survive and deserves a policy response that allows it to do that. But I have a responsibility to ensure that within that, that we impose welfare standards within reason on this industry, and we will do that. And we will bring, Deputy, that code of conduct to committee, and I suspect you probably will have an input into it. You know, wait and see what we do on that. We have a report. One of the first things I did actually when I became a minister was to ask for a report on fur farming, which I got, and it makes a whole series of recommendations. I know some of the deputies have probably read that, and it doesn't go far enough for you. But I think it is a step in the right direction, and now we will move ahead to put a code of conduct in place, and let's see where we are in 5 years' time with this industry.
If anyone wants to get involved with our campaigns, we have a website, it's naracampaigns.org. You can find us on Twitter at NARA Campaigns, or on Facebook at NARA Campaigns Ireland, and you can follow our campaigns, follow our updates. We send out information every couple of days on what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be next, and our email address is naracampaigns@gmail.com. And we answer same day, so any questions, any interest, please give us a shout. We need all your help to get fur farming banned in this country.
Just always speak out, like I said, even like when you're walking down the street and if you see someone in some fur that you know that is real, just ask them. Like, you don't have to be aggressive and you don't have to like shame them necessarily, because some people genuinely don't know.
People have started really paying attention to the welfare of animals and not just things.
Well, I suppose I'm the eternal optimist, and I always live in hope that things will get better. And I think, you know, if you're living in a life, you have to have that attitude. There is great work going on in this country and in other countries, and I've met amazing people who are totally and utterly committed to animal welfare and to try and stop this wanton and unnecessary cruelty to animals. So I get great hope from that. And that, you know, would keep me going and would keep them going as well, that we can have a society where we don't treat animals cruelly.
But I would hope that if the majority of the country saw something like this, they'd see it for the horrific torture facility that it is.